Negotiations for the much-anticipated India-UK freight trade agreement are nearing a conclusion, with no additional full round of talks expected. A Gurdwara in Canada's Vancouver has been vandalized with pro-Khalistan graffiti, with its leaders blaming a small group of separatists for the act, as per reports. Thousands of protesters rallied in New York, Washington and cities across the United States in a second major wave of demonstrations against Donald Trump and his hardline policies. Beijing hosted a half marathon that included 21 humanoid robot runners, but only 6 managed to finish the race. And thousands of Christians gathered in Jerusalem for the centuries-old Holy Fire ceremony. Well, our big focus, it's the first such visit by an American Vice President to India in 12 years. US Vice President JD Vance will arrive in Delhi today with his family on a rare 4-day trip by an American Vice President that will take them to Agra and Jaipur as well. Now, Mr. Vance is due to land in Delhi along with his wife, Usha Chilukuri, and their 3 children, and a delegation of US government officials, which actually includes the US National Security Council Senior Director for South and Central Asia, Ricky Gill. Mr. Vance will be given an official guard of honor at the airport in just a short while from now and is due to meet Prime Minister Modi, who is expected to be accompanied by members of his cabinet at a dinner at his residence in the evening. But with Trump's sweeping tariffs on a 90-day pause, is there behind-the-scenes urgency from either side to finalize the deal before the clock runs out? Well, take a look at our report.
US Vice President JD Vance is making his first official visit to India. It's not just another handshake tour. This one's loaded with agenda. Trade, tariff, tech, and China, all in sharp focus. At the heart of the visit is a high-level push to lock in a bilateral trade deal. Both sides want to scale trade to $500 billion. That's more than double the current levels, with recent trade already touching $190 billion. India and the United States are bringing political muscle to make it happen. Vance will meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi with talks spanning tariffs, tech and regional security. It's also a personal homecoming of sorts. Vance's wife, Usha Bala Chilukuri Vance, is the daughter of South Indian immigrants. She and their children will accompany him on visits to Jaipur and Agra, adding layers of identity and symbolism to a visit that's all about power and partnership. India is still gauging the effects of reciprocal tariffs of 26%, which have been paused for now. Now the United States wants bigger concessions, lower Indian duties on American goods, market access for agriculture and dairy, and tighter cooperation on deportations. For India, it's a tight balancing act. Farming employs nearly 45% of India's workforce. Any concession risks domestic backlash. India is offering tariff cuts, defense purchases, and tech collaboration. Prime Minister Modi even discussed deepening the US-India innovation ties in a recent call with Elon Musk. From the Quad alliance to joint military drills and tech investments, both countries are moving in sync to counter Beijing's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. Apple and Google are expanding operations in India. Musk's Starlink has signed with top Indian telecoms to roll out satellite internet. India is ramping up defense purchases, including talks to buy 5th-generation stealth fighter jets. Now, JD Vance's visit could fast-track that pivot into a full-scale partnership. Rhythm Arcadia's report for NDTV World.
My colleague Gauri Dwivedi has been tracking the finer details for us. She joins us live at the moment for further clarity. Gauri, how is JD Vance positioning this visit? Is it a diplomatic reset? A preemptive negotiation or a signal from a Trump-aligned White House? Any indication of concrete deliverables from this trip?
I think it's a mix of all of it, Parmeshwar. The fact that this visit comes in so early in the Trump administration's tenure is probably not just symbolic, but indicative of the kind of importance that the Trump administration lays on the bilateral relationship with India. Remember, the Trump administration hasn't completed 100 days in office so far. Of course, there have been a lot of big ticket announcements that have ruffled feathers. But the fact that this visit is taking place so early in that tenure is also going to allow both sides to probably address some of the issues that have been of concerns, particularly here in New Delhi, trade being one. But having said that, this is also a vice president that is unlike the previous vice presidents that America has seen, at least in the last couple of decades. He's more involved in policy making. His views are very aligned to that of the president, and his views are known publicly. So that, I think, is a big departure from the previous vice presidents that America has seen. So his visit here, his visit for 3 days, talking about trade, tech, diplomacy, strategy, all of it, and geopolitical goals that may be common for India and the US, I think is extremely important and could lead to some important takeaways at the end of this visit.
Well, it is the first such visit by an American vice president to India in 12 years. Gauri, thanks so much for joining us with that crucial update. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. With that, let's turn our attention to the other big story we're tracking. Negotiations for the much-anticipated India-UK free trade agreement are nearing conclusion, with no additional full round of talks expected. But after 14 rounds of discussions since the talks began in January 2022, the process has now entered its final stages, with officials indicating that deliberations are progressing at an accelerated pace. In fact, sources have indicated that the most important sticking point in these negotiations remains the mechanism for dispute resolution. But for further clarity, let's go across to my colleague Rishabh Bhatnagar, who's been looking at all the key details. Rishabh, where do things stand currently? And we're given to understand that Piyush Goyal is heading to London next month for a follow-up meeting with the UK Secretary of State for Business and Trade, right?
Right, Parmeshwar, things with the UK stand, they're basically divided on three fronts. With the UK, we're negotiating a deal on three fronts, one of them being a free trade agreement, the second being a double taxation avoidance agreement, and the third being a bilateral investment treaty. Now, the bilateral investment treaty is the one on which work is currently ongoing. That is where the negotiations are continuing. The FTA talks are nearly done now. 14 rounds have taken place, and that is sufficient now. What we're also seeing from the
Right. While we will revert to Rishabh for regular updates, I must inform you that finally, negotiations for the much-anticipated India-UK free trade agreement are nearing conclusion, with no additional full round of talks expected, and with Piyush Goyal heading to London next month to finalize things further. And with that, let's get you now updates from Canada. A Gurdwara in Vancouver was vandalized overnight with pro-Khalistan graffiti, and the incident accused at the Khalsa Diwan Society, or KDS Gurdwara in Vancouver, better known as the Ross Street Gurdwara. In fact, the images that are playing out on your screens at the moment, they were shared on the official account, Gurdwara administration. It showed the word Khalistan spray painted in multiple places on the wall surrounding the parking lot of the Sikh temple. The Vancouver Police Department is currently investigating the incident that occurred on Saturday morning. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking all the finer developments for us. She joins us live from Vancouver at the moment. Maha, we're given to understand that this incident has taken place. Separately, we're also hearing of an incident that occurred at a temple. Take us through the latest developments.
That's correct. There were two incidents that took place. One on Ross Street, where there is a Gurudwara which was spray painted with hateful graffiti. And the leaders of the Gurudwara say that this is being done by a small group of pro-Khalistan separatists who are indulging in intimidation tactics and also trying to create divisions within the Sikh community. And they say that this goes against not just the ethos of Sikhism, which calls upon inclusivity, but also the ethos of the Canadian society at large. And simultaneously, there was another incident that took place at the Lakshmi Narayan Temple in Surrey. Surrey is another city, but very close to Vancouver, about 50 minutes or 1 hour drive from Vancouver. And here again, hateful graffiti was seen painted at the Lakshmi Narayan Temple building wall. And the leaders of the temple there have said that it is not a coincidence that both these have taken place on the same day. They've also linked it to the advanced polling of the election. And they've said that this should be investigated together, considering that these great hateful graffiti were painted both on the Gurudwara on Ross Street in Vancouver and at the Surrey Lakshmi Narayan Temple. So they are linking both these incidents that took place. But yes, both of them have taken place either in Vancouver or close to Vancouver. The Vancouver Police Department, which is investigating the graffiti on the Gurudwara, have said so far they have not been able to apprehend any suspect. However, they are investigating the matter.
Maha, as always, thanks so much for joining us with the latest regarding this story. Let's also get in an update with Maha as far as elections are concerned. Canada says preliminary estimates show that nearly 2 million Canadians voted on Friday, which is the first day of advance polls. Representatives of the non-partisan agency said that's a record turnout. But for the latest lowdown, let's go across to Maha. Maha, where do things stand as far as the Canadian polls are concerned?
Well, these numbers certainly are very encouraging for Election Canada, considering that 2 million voters came out on the first day of advance polling, that is on Friday itself. However, they are saying that let's not jump the gun and assume that this will result in a greater voter turnout on the final day. Last time in 2021, the voter turnout was around 63%, and the participation of the youth was much lower at 47%. And that is why we are seeing a lot of extra effort that is being made by Election Canada. For instance, last week, they had separate stations within 100 universities and colleges across Canada, where the people from 18 to 24 years of age could come and vote no matter where they were. The advanced polling is also held usually in Canada, and this time this is being held for 4 days on a long weekend to encourage voters who might have conflicts in their schedule on the final day to come ahead and vote. Now, many voters were seen saying that they've been waiting in the queue. This is unusual, because usually the queues are not that long. So they also believe that this might be indicative of the fact that the voter turnout overall may be larger this time around, and that people are keen on participation because of the situation, especially with regards to giving one party a clear mandate they believe is necessary to be able to take on US President Donald Trump and the threats coming in from the US as far as the economic coercion is concerned or the annexation threats are concerned. Early voting had also started pretty much around the time of the campaign, where special ballots were allowed for people who are not within the country. Citizens, Canadian citizens outside the country could also vote through that. That ends on the 22nd of April as well. By special ballot by mail or post ends at that time. And this advanced polling ends tomorrow on Monday here in Canada. It's a 4-day event, just a week ahead of the final day of polling.
Maha, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown from Vancouver. Well, with that, let's turn our attention to the United States, where thousands of protesters rallied in New York, Washington, and other cities across the US for a second major round of demonstrations against Donald Trump and his hardline policies. Many, in fact, took aim at Trump's deportations of undocumented migrants. Protesters also voiced concern that Trump was threatening long-respected constitutional norms, including the right to due process. In fact, the chief organizer of these protests that took place over the weekend on Saturday, the group 5051, which is a number actually representing 50 protests in 50 states in one movement, they have said that some 400 demonstrations were planned across the US. For further clarity, joining us live from Washington, D.C. at the moment, Dr. Richard Benkin. Dr. Benkin, as always, thank you so much for your time. Now, political protests, as we are seeing, are becoming way more common in the United States. What would you say regarding the scale of these 50-51 protests? Are they unprecedented?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here. It's always a pleasure to be here. And yes, I think they are pretty much incidental. Before the protests, the organizers predicted millions would turn out. And as you just characterized it correctly, by the way, and as the BBC has, turned out to be thousands. Not only that, but these protesters turned out in areas that, if you look at the previous election totals, were virulently anti-Trump in their votes. And the people that turned out basically are the kind of people that wouldn't vote for Donald Trump under any circumstances. So it's hard to really give these protests anything, assign any significance to them. I think the other problem we have is that for a lot of the people who oppose President Trump, they really don't know how to respond to the fact that a majority of voters last November voted him into office, and the issues that you've mentioned, especially, for instance, deporting illegal aliens from the United States, are immensely popular with the American citizens. As far as, is something done correctly or incorrectly, legally, illegally, in compliance with the Constitution or not, these things are so far from being adjudicated in what we have as a triple-tier legal system for federal litigation, that right now it's only a charge being made by people who don't like what President Trump is doing.
Well, those same people argue that this is a very perilous time in America for liberty. But as always, Dr. Benkian, thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on NDTV.
Right.
Slipping into a very quick break for now. Back in a moment with much more. Do stay tuned.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India, it matters to India, it matters to India, and it matters to me, and it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru, only on NDTV 24x7.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality, accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years.
Well, meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi will embark on a two-day visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. From energy security to defense cooperation and cultural synergy, here's how India is engaging one of its closest partners in West Asia.
Prime Minister Modi will embark on a two-day visit to Saudi Arabia from April 22 to 23. His first trip to the kingdom after 6 years amid a tumultuous period for the global economy.
The Honorable Prime Minister will be paying a visit to Saudi Arabia next week on 22nd and 23rd of April 2025. This is a visit at the invitation of His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince and Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The upcoming visit will be Prime Minister's third visit in this capacity to Saudi Arabia.
The visit comes amid deepening strategic engagement between New Delhi and Riyadh, especially following the launch of the India-Saudi Strategic Partnership Council in 2023 during the Crown Prince's state visit to India for the G20 summit. Saudi Arabia is India's fifth largest trade partner. India is Saudi Arabia's second largest trade partner. During financial year 2023-24, India's imports from Saudi Arabia reached $31.42 billion, and exports to Saudi Arabia were worth $11.56 billion. Major commodities of export from India to Saudi Arabia include engineering goods, rice, petroleum products, chemicals, textiles, food products, ceramic tiles. Whereas major commodities of import for India from Saudi Arabia are crude oil, LPG, fertilizers, chemicals, plastic and products thereof. Saudi Arabia remained India's third largest crude and petroleum products sourcing destination for FY 2023-24. India imported 33.35 MMT of crude oil in FY 2023-24 from Saudi Arabia, accounting for 14.3% of India's total crude oil imports. In FY 2023-24, Saudi Arabia was the third largest LPG sourcing destination for India, accounting for 18.2% of the total LPG imports of India for 2023-24. While the regional situation is still in turmoil, with the Houthis trying to disrupt maritime traffic on the Red Sea, India is keen to engage with Saudi Arabia and other partners in the region to restore stability.
The Indian Navy has mounted a significant effort in that area and already taken a number of measures to ensure the safety of merchant ships and seafarers. Discussions on the situation about on West Asia, the current state of affairs between Israel and Palestine. And obviously on that front also we've seen developments of some concern. Saudi Arabia plays a very important role in addressing this issue. India has remained involved with all the principal actors in this issue.
Be it the progress of the India-Middle East-European corridor or the Ukraine-Russia war, the PM is expected to discuss issues of regional and global relevance.
The Prime Minister had articulated India's position about the need for dialogue to address and resolve this issue, for people to sit around a table and for the principal protagonists to sit around the table and find solutions to this. And we are glad to see some of that happening. And it's good that a partner such as Saudi Arabia is involved in this exercise. Again, I cannot prejudge what the nature of the discussions will be, but this is going to be a significant subject.
From hard diplomacy to heartfelt cultural ties, the India-Saudi Arabia relationship today reflects a multi-dimensional partnership. PM Modi's visit is expected to set the course for the next chapter in this strategic alliance. With Mohammad Ghazali, Bureau Report, NDTV.
In other news, Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of breaching a 30-hour Easter truce announced by Russian President Vladimir Putin on Saturday. That has now expired. Take a look at the finer details.
Russian President Vladimir Putin declared what he called a humanitarian ceasefire, a 6-hour Easter truce from Saturday evening to midnight.
Руководствуясь гуманитарными соображениями, сегодня с 18:00 часов до 00 часов с воскресенья на понедельник российская сторона объявляет пасхальное перемирие. Приказываю на этот период
But even before the candles went out in Moscow's cathedral, fresh shelling was reported from Ukraine's front lines. Ukraine recorded 387 shelling incidents and 19 assaults during the hours Russia claimed to be observing a ceasefire. Ukraine's military confirmed that while activity has reduced, the fighting hasn't stopped. Explosions were heard in Russian-held Donetsk. Drone attacks hit Kherson. On Easter Sunday, Zelensky stood before Kiev's St. Sophia Cathedral in a traditional embroidered shirt and gave a message of hope.
Дорогі народи, нехай цей день настане. Година зла скінчиться. Прийде день життя, день миру, день України. День довжиною в століття.
The timing of Putin's truce also raised eyebrows. It came a day after Washington issued an ultimatum: show progress in peace talks or the United States moves on. It also followed Russian claims of gains in Ukraine's incursion into Russia's Kursk region. Ukraine's foreign minister called the truce a headline grab, adding that real trust needs 30 days of silence, not just 6 hours of showmanship. While fighting raged, a rare moment of diplomacy, Ukraine and Russia completed one of the biggest prisoner swaps of the war. Over 500 soldiers exchanged, including wounded troops on both sides, with help from the UAE. But real peace still seems distant. But for now, what Russia calls a ceasefire, Ukraine calls camouflage. And peace still feels like a promise too fragile to trust. Rhythm Arcadia's report for NDTV World.
Thank you so much for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll continue to track the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring